Hey there guys, welcome back to the channel, or welcome here if it is your first time. In today's video I'm reviewing the xDuoo TA20 Plus tube headphone amplifier. Let's get it. What's cracking, audio fans? It's David here from Prime Audio Reviews. And look at this beastie here. Holy moly. I know you can't see much of it yet. Well, I will show you around the chassis and the device in a moment. Let's first of all just say that is a power supply. That is a cage, protective cage. But before I get any further, I want to tell you the price of this unit is $499. So yeah, this is a beast of a thing. It weighs like 4.3 kilograms. So it's pretty hefty. It's got this beautiful gunmetal grey finish like most recent xDuoo devices. Now, as I mentioned, this is a cage, a protective cage, and that is to protect the tubes or to protect hands or fingers from touching the tubes, which can get quite hot, but it's totally up to you. If you want to leave the cage off, that is absolutely fine. Just be careful, of course. Now you can see there are 3 tubes here, one large one and 2 small ones. Now the large one is a 5Z4P tube, and this is actually what we call a rectifier tube. And this one is actually responsible for the power delivery, while the other 2 are in the sound circuit. Now you might ask yourself, and unless you're aware already of course, so you might be asking, why would you need or want a tube in the power delivery system? Well, the rectifier tube converts AC voltage to a pulsating DC signal, and then a capacitor stores the charge during the peaks of the pulsating DC and releases it during the troughs, effectively smoothing out the waveform. So in other words, you can sort of imagine the power delivery here like a river of flowing lava. It's just smooth and consistent and warm. In contrast to a solid state power delivery, which is more like lightning strikes on and off super fast, but this one just gives a smooth, steady flow of power. Now this rectification process does introduce some harmonics and subtle distortions to the power signal, and these harmonic components can contribute to the amplifier's overall tonal characteristics, potentially adding more of that tubey warmth. Next up, let's talk about these smaller tubes, and we've got 2 12AU7 tubes, and these are for audio processing. Now at the moment I've got the APOS Ray tubes in here, but by default it comes with an xDuoo branded pair of tubes. Very similar but slightly different, but I will be doing a separate review on these tubes in the near future. So yeah, these 2 tubes are in the audio chain, but it is a hybrid. This is a hybrid unit, so there is also, these work with a class A buffer in the output stage, and what that does, that configuration offers the best of both worlds. So you get that warm and analog charm from the tubes, while you also get a nice, robust, powerful power delivery, and importantly for a headphone amplifier, a low impedance output. And that low impedance output makes this device compatible with a much wider range of headphones as compared to an OTL or output transformerless amp like my Felix Audio Elise. Yeah, this one is just, you know, nice low impedance output impedance, making it more compatible with headphones across the board. Okay, so now we're done with that. Let's show you the front of the device, because this is where it gets real interesting. Have a look at that. Isn't that pretty? So right here in the middle, you've seen it already, we've got an old style dynamic VU meter, and that is awesome. It actually works. I don't have any signal running through it right now, so it's just idle there, but when you've got music playing, you can sit there and watch that dial pop up and down. I love this thing. I also really appreciate the LED volume display here. You can see it moving there. I love that. Similar to one of the recent topping models, I can't remember which one, but you'll see here the bright red, as is xDuoo's style lately. Volume knob. It's also a button which cycles through the 3 available inputs, which we've got 2 auxiliary and 1 balanced input. I'll show you that in a moment. Over here we've got the headphone outs, 6.35mm unbalanced, a 4.4mm balanced output, and a balanced XLR headphone output. So it looks amazing, it feels amazing, like the build quality is just exceptional. Now over here on the back I/O panel, here we've got an auxiliary out, so the TA20 Plus, you can actually use it as a preamplifier. Then we've got 2 RCA auxiliary ins, then we've got our balanced XLR input, and even a balanced 4.4mm input. Apart from that, we've got a voltage selector here and your power delivery there. Alright, it's time to talk about the sound. So how does all this sound? Well, look, listening to this amp it's kind of like a smooth ride down a musical river. Unlike some darker toned tube amps, this one manages to steer clear of a veiled sounds, and it presents a transparent, yet at the same time lush recording of your music. And the inclusion of second order harmonics, which is what you get from the tubes here, that acts like a secret sauce. It infuses notes with richness and extra dimensionality. And, you know, this harmonious touch doesn't fall into the trap of sluggishness, and that's thanks in part to that Class A amplification under the hood. Now, I wouldn't necessarily call the sound or the tonality of this warm. I think that's a bit of a misconception with tube amps. Some of them do sound very syrupy and warm, but a lot of them, those second order harmonics, just sort of, they add dimensions to each note. They add a little bit of roundness to each note, which gives them this smoother analog feel, but not necessarily darkening the tone. So with this amp, you're still getting that nice crisp sound. The transients they're still nice and clean, although they are a little bit smoother than a solid state amp. It still does detail retrieval very well. The bass extension is amazing. I'll get to that in a minute. But first of all, let's talk about compatibility. And like I said, with the low output impedance, this amp is a great match for a variety of headphones. However, sensitive IEMs do not fare nearly as well, and the reason for that is because with a good pair of sensitive IEMs, boy, it's heavy holding this thing, you do hear the faint whisper of background hiss and some sporadic pops here and there, and it can be downright distracting. Yet if you swap those IEMs for a pair of headphones with a bit more resistance or impedance, then the TA20 Plus sounds rich in detail. It's got fantastic bass extension. Speaking of which, the lows are very impressive here. It's not just about the depth though of the bass, it's the way it extends, adding this profound character to the sound. And when it comes to the sound stage, this doesn't disappoint either. The soundstage sprawls out, particularly in width to left and right, creating a sense of space that gives each instrument and vocal plenty of room to breathe. The forward depth in the soundstage is probably not so much as a good solid state amp, but then again, you're getting that extra fluidity and that extra sense of dimension with your music. So it's great for headphones, maybe some really sensitive dynamic headphones you might hear a bit of background noise perhaps, but for the most part it's pretty quiet and pretty satisfying. Even some harder to drive IEMs, you won't really notice any background noise. So let me put this down for a second and let's sum it up. So the xDuoo TA20 Plus, look, this is a fantastic way for people to get started in the world of tube amps, or it's a great way to enhance an existing setup. Like the ability to balance smoothness with dynamism, harmonics with clarity, and that compatibility with a wide variety of headphones makes it a very versatile companion. And besides that, it's just an absolute pleasure to use. The button here is nice and tactile. I love that volume display which I showed you before. The VU meter adds a lot of value for me, and just as always, that beautiful glow of tubes, especially in a dark room or at night, is just mesmerizing. So overall, look, I think this is a very good device. Maybe you might think $499 is not cheap, and no, of course it's not, but in the world of tube amplifiers like this, it's actually pretty darn reasonable, especially when you factor in just how well built this is. It is just immaculate. So with that said, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, Parfam audiophile style, and if you're new here, consider hitting that subscribe button before you go, and until next time, I'll see you later.